Welcome back and thank you for staying with the Daily Report. Time now for the People's Court, the segment that comes to you every Tuesday night. My name is George Maringa. Thank you for staying with us. As I promised you, Linda Alela and Victor Muyakane are here on set as we bring you People's Court with a difference tonight. We are on one side as we interrogate and find out more from our guests tonight who are joining us right here in studio. We did tell you that our panel is complete. We can see your feedback coming already at Muyakane, at George Maringa _ at Linda _Alela. Use the hashtag Daily Report, hashtag People's Court. You can also tweet directly at TV47 News.
Yes, let's take a look at what is expected. That is, the National Assembly has resumed its sitting, and that was today, from beginning this afternoon. And there are a couple of things that they'll be looking at. So if we could have that up so that we are reminded of what to expect, a full tray and critical, of course, on bills that will attract a huge aspect of debate that is in the August House. We're looking at a Finance Bill 2024, which will provide revenue generating mechanisms for the 2024-2025 budget estimates, the Affordable Housing Bill that is sponsored by Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah. We're also expecting the regulations of the Social Health Insurance Fund, SHIF, which of course has proposed about 2.75% deduction of the gross salary or wage of the household by the 9th day of each month. Also the bipartisan talks that of course brought the National Dialogue Committee, that is the NADCO, that was signed by NADCO chairs. We all remember Kalonzo Musyoka, as well as that was representing Azimio Coalition, as well as Kimani Ichung'wah of the Kenya Kwanza Coalition. And under this, a couple of things will be looked at. That is, there will be a look of the possible changes in the structure of government. That is very, very important. The proposal to create Office of Leader of the Opposition, that is, of course, is incorporated in the report. The increase of timelines that we know within which the Supreme Court can handle the case or the determination of the petitions, especially the presidential petition. And we're looking at the 14 to 21 days. And we'll also have the restructuring and reconstitution of the IEBC, which is crucial, a burning matter as it stands right now. Of course, expanding the selection panel from about a 7-member to 9-member selection panel. And we also are looking forward to see what they will say about the evaluation of the 2022 electoral process, which is equally is a Pandora's box. This has been pushed by the opposition side. We all understand that. And of course, we're looking at a proposal that is bound to create the Office of Leader of the Opposition that is set to be occupied by the second runner-up, and a couple of other matters that perhaps would crop up, including what we have seen the ladies say that tomorrow they'll be having a slow kind of Valentine, just so they would get the members of parliament to discuss these concerns that they have in relation to the high cases of femicide. Victor Muyakane, if you could introduce the lady and the gentleman that we have on board.
Absolutely. We have oriented you as to what we want to talk about, but here to help us break this down, here to help us extract some insight and understanding of this matter, we have 5 guests with us. We have a couple of doctors. Both of them are governance experts. We also have a couple of political analysts as well, and those are going to bring in their insight on that. And we also have the strategic communications lead for the UDA party in the building tonight. Arnold Maliba is the latter. He is the strategic communication lead for UDA party. Karibu sana. Karibu sana. Next to him, we have Dr. Julia Shege, HSC, I should say. Yeah. Absolutely. Proud of that, aren't you? Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. You're a governance expert as well as political analyst. Karibu sana. Next, we have Mr. Meshak Odede. Karibu sana. You are a political analyst, to say the least. I understand you wear many hats. Karibu sana. Next to you, we have the other doctor, Dr. Harun Isak Hassan. Karibu sana. You're also a governance expert as well as a political analyst.
No, governance and leadership expert.
Thank you for the distinction. Yeah. We shall actually use that distinction in the conversation today. Thank you very much. And a politician as well.
And a politician.
Listen, it goes without saying, all of them are politicians. You don't analyze politics if you're not. Absolutely. And last but definitely not least, we have Gakuna. Is it Gakuni or Gakuna?
Castro.
There you go. Gakuna Gina Castro. You are also a politician and political analyst.
Karibu
sana.
Thank you for having me.
Gentlemen and lady, welcome. The People's Court is in session. Now, perhaps we should just get your top impressions. I mean, Arnold, you're an insider. We probably will ask you last. But let's start with you, sir. Talk to us. Parliament is back, long break. You know, what are your impressions on this resumption?
Exactly. First of all, we welcome them back to Nairobi. They have been in the streets in the machinery there. And of course, they came and opened their session today. They were in Parliament and we expected they were reconstituting the House Business Committee today because we're expecting much to be happening in the House of Parliament. More so prioritizing more on the government bills. And I also understand that tomorrow there'll be the business house will be limitation of the private bills and committee bills, and also the parastatal and ministry bills, so that they can give more time to government bills that be tabled by the majority leader, Kimani Ichung'wah. So we expect, and the government bills here, they're the priorities of the government. That's what we're expecting, the government priorities, to give them more legal ways, and also to give them, to assert them in a manner that their stand and their takes on the policy influence is also legitimized.
Right. Are you confident?
I'm very confident.
Absolutely?
Very.
All right. Dr. Hassan, a quick one.
Yeah.
Because of the distinction in your title and in your areas of focus, I want you to talk to a concern that has emerged from a number of Kenyans. Is the parliament that we have as currently constituted capable in terms of leadership, in terms of governance, and in terms of even integrity? Is it capable of delivering to Kenyans their hopes and dreams?
That's a very good question, and it's something that is of concern to all Kenyans, particularly the electorates. There are a number of issues that we expected from parliamentarians when they go for recess. And the important thing that we expect from them is for them to interact with their electorates in order for them to find out what is indeed a concern for their electorates, in order for them to bring it to the House to run the process of the needs for their electorates as well as balancing the needs or priority of the government. Our parliamentarians in nature are political representative or political party representatives. They are never people's representative. In a manner the way they always behave, in that they propagate for government's party, rather agenda or priorities in their deliverables or what we call manifesto of that leading political party, unlike the mandate they are given, which is focused on representation. And when we think of representation, we look at what is the interest of the people we represent and how do we balance it so that we don't lose their priority as people who have moved them into that house, and also ensuring that the government is in line with the interest of the electorates.
Right.
But as my colleague has just put it very well, he's very much confident with parliamentarians delivering government priorities. And from the perspective of leadership, and particularly when you look at it, political leadership, you need to look at exactly your employer, then blend it with government priority, and then come up with balanced win-win situation where the beneficiaries, who are the electorate, gets their
rights
and the
expectation.
in a manner, and the expectation in a manner that is convincing. Quite often, I'm sorry to say that, I'm more a politician, and perhaps if I would have been in that August House, I would have addressed it differently, right. Not the way they're addressing, okay. But I think the focus of our parliamentarian is more on impressing the government, or particularly the political, the political interest,
right.
that each of them carry when they get into that August House.
Right, thank you so much for that. We will revisit that subject a little bit later on, but over to you, Linda.
Yes, quick one. Before we come to you, Mesha Kodede, allow us to engage the lady for purposes of balance. Yeah? And Daktari, here we are talking about Parliament coming back and, with some elements of concerns that are carried from the previous sessions, in the sense that most of the Kenyans did not exhibit any form of confidence in terms of how they articulate the concerns of the people at the level of the House. In fact, there were claims that perhaps these ones are just there to rubber stamp what is the interest of the executive. What do you make of their coming back? Do you foresee any element of change? Noting that, even in this time that they were on recess, it was evident and clear that the environment, the country, was politically charged.
Thank you so much, Linda, and good evening to our viewers.
Your mic?
The mic, oh, yes. Please have the mic up. Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Rinda, for this wonderful evening, and good evening to our viewers. The question is very critical at the moment, and I want, first of all, to start by reminding our viewers and reminding our MPs, because sometimes I think they forget what is their role. It's just very simple, 3: registration, oversight, and representation. And I want to remind our MPs, and of course welcome them back to Nairobi, though some of them were still in Nairobi anyway. But we want to believe that the long holiday, they went to be with the people. And sometimes we look at our parliament and you wonder, are they aware, are they sure of what they're supposed to be doing? Because as my colleague has already said, Kenyans, not us, who are the panelists here, expressed this, they were not very confident with the current parliament because, number one, they seemed not to represent the wananchi. The representation role, they never played it very well. They look like they were rubber stamping what the executive is already telling them. And I want to remind our MPs, with all due respect, they are not employees of the president. With all due respect, he's my friend. He gave me actually he gave me a serious award last year. So he's my friend. The MPs are not employees of the presidency or the president. They are employees of Wajiko. Those are the people who have employed them. And therefore, they should be able, even if they want to propel a political party agenda, they should be able to propel the Wajiko agenda. And like now, let's face it, the current economic crisis, the current issues that are facing wananchi, and I believe, because they went to mashinani, I believe they listened to the people. And therefore, when they come back, they should be able to represent those people that they were listening to. I believe every MP who is listening to this kind of a conversation will be very bold to say, hey, this is my employer, who is Wajiko. This is what they are saying, and this is the executive. This is what they are saying. So they have to do a lot of balancing.
And perhaps that is the tricky bit as we look in Mesha Kodede, because we all understand that then the president, alongside a majority of these members of parliament, will traverse the different parts of the country in search of votes. Why? Because it will be a danger if the president is going to have a hung parliament. It will be a danger if the president is not going to have enough numbers at the level of parliament. Then that clearly tells you that in a way, these members of parliament have no choice but to sometimes propel the agenda of the executive. Quite a delicate balance. Is there anything wrong with them actually going there and, in a way, equally speaking, to propel what it is that their own president would term right, who's the main leader in terms of making sure that Wanjiko gets what it is that they would require?
Thank you, Linda. I hope in a speaker. Yes. Yeah. The first thing is. Our politics, there is what it is, and then there is what it should be. Okay. So many times in a discussion like this, we need to paint a picture of what it should be, and then look at what it is and see whether it is possible to get to what it should be. What it should be is parliament, who are the people's representative, having conversation in the House on behalf of the electorate. But what it is parliament who are representing political parties which are belonging to individuals. So if today Honorable Raila Odinga leaves ODM, ODM dies. If William Ruto jumps out of UDA today, UDA will not be there tomorrow morning. So this is what we call political parties, but they are actually individuals. So because we want it to look good, we call them political parties. So right in that house, we call them Party A, Party B, minority, majority, but we know what minority means. Who calls shot in the minority and who calls shot in the majority. So if it were what we think it should be, then the discussion in that house would have been the people being represented, meaning the views of the people. On each and every bill, it would have been the people, my people want it like this. And so the executive has nothing wrong with trying to influence or convince Parliament to pass some of his agendas because he is president. But what would be happening is we would see a whole Parliament coming with views of their people, the electorates, and asking if it is this bill about finance or bill a certain other bill on security. This is the view of my people and they have a question here. So the member of Parliament would be asking those questions about that particular bill on the issues that the people are uncomfortable with. But what we have is a Parliament which is somehow individuals, the party leaders are the whole Parliament. So the party leader, who is not probably the president, is having his views, and his views is what is carried into that house. And the party leader who is running the government is also having his view, and he believes this is what I want to do to Kenyans as the president. So all members of Parliament on his corner are not coming with the views of the electorate, are coming with his view. And so they are discussing like two people discussing this thing and not the Kenyan people discussing it. So that is where we fall short of everything.
And I don't know whether I hear you saying that we fault the quality of debate, but then again, that should be answered later on. I think Arnold is eagerly waiting to tell us whether if Ruto is not part of UDA, then probably UDA is as good as dead.
Absolutely, and I could see him, noting a few things even as he prepares to respond. But Arnold, thank you so much for joining us. As of course, Victor alluded, as an insider, and your party being the majority party in both houses, when you look at the sessions, or rather the activities that you even saw over the recess, we did see public participation, especially on the amendment of the Affordable Housing Bill 2023. Do you think that perhaps your party will succumb to the sentiments of your co-panelists tonight, even as you coined that with what we had the former Vice President and Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka saying parliamentarians should not be, hijacked, kutekwa nyara, you are his words, by the executive, by the government?
First of all, please allow me to run through some of the issues they raised.
Yes, yes.
Because I thought
you can pick the other mic. We seem to have a problem with that. It's on now. Yes, okay. It's on now.
So I just needed to set a few things straight.
You can just use her mic. Sorry, we will fix that in a short time.
Just to set a few things straight on what they said.
Yes.
It's important before I respond to a question.
Yes, yes.
First and foremost, the president does not believe in favoritism, so the president cannot honor anyone because they are friends. So I know the president did not honor Dr. Julia because they were friends. The office of the president honored her because of her work. It's important to clear that. Otherwise, people out there might actually think that just because Dr. Julia is Dr. William's friend, that's why she actually got her HSC. No, it's premised on the work she had done. It was important that she clears that. The president is quite a straightforward man. Having said that, it's important to then come up to these issues. When unfortunately, all of us who are here have never run government. It's also sad.
That's not true. That's not true.
Have never run government because none of these guys has actually been president before.
Okay.
So it's a fact.
That I agree.
None of these guys.
That I agree. I agree.
I have no doubt all of you have got potential. You could be president sometimes in future, probably the year 3100. That having been said, I need to point out this way. So it's easy that when we give these opinions, sometimes we are far removed from the seat. spectators sometimes are the best players. AFCON has just ended, and I was supporting a team that I didn't, of course, win, and of course, the team that I really didn't like and thought they didn't have proper players won. Somehow, in my head, I played so well. I also tried to sing sometimes in my life, and when I was in the bathroom, I could sing so well. Then when I tried to actually sing in a choir or in a recording, it didn't come out so well. Why am I saying that? I say that to actually point out this way, that it's important for us to understand where we are coming from as a nation. The parliament we have, I can tell you authoritatively, it is a wartime parliament. It cannot do the idealistic ideas that you see around here. It does what is good for the republic, that the republic may be well, that the republic may live. Why do I say it's a wartime parliament? Is that we are coming at a place where somehow when we give these ideas, we forget that everybody, from prophecies, let me call them prophecies, economic specialists told us 5 years, 7 years ago, that we were getting into a hole. Everybody else expected us that we would default by last year, June. It's been so bad, but somehow we don't want to look at the context of where we've come from. We've just come from a political situation that was so difficult. So, whereas there is the ideal of what, and you know, democracy, management by democracy, or democratic management, is much more than the theory of democracy. So, what Parliament is actually doing at the moment, very few people, you know, they sit down and they are leaders. They look at the realities of where we are going. And when they make decisions, it's easy for somebody to actually sit down. But then we have got a consensus between the executive and the legislature, not because there's even a majority in Parliament. It's because there's the yellow in State House and then there's the yellow on Parliament Road. It's because a lot of times when they sit down, they look at the realities of where we are. If parliamentarians were to be populists and run around with some of these trialist ideas, we will not have a country today. It will be so difficult looking at the debt situation, look at the political situation we've had. For example, as a country we chose and said we need to have a conversation, the NADCO conversation. If we were idealistic, we would have stuck to the narrow of democracy. That of course Kenya Kwanza won. And therefore, we cannot talk to anyone else. We won. The courts affirmed that particular end. The numbers, of course, quantitatively we won. And we have got, in Parliament, if you ended up there, you would actually find there that in numbers, we have got more support. But if we were to stick with that, will we still have a country? So what we have today is both the government, or the executive and the legislature. We must also remember that there is an element of wartime-like scenario, and they might not really work from what we have read. A few of us here have not been in Parliament. We are not working there. So, but you know, it's Chinua Achebe who says that if the crocodile comes out of water one morning and tells you that the alligator is dead, you can't doubt that because you don't live in water. I have just come from that water, and I am telling you that this is where we are, and that before you actually point fingers at the legislators and come up with these easy lines to win and whip emotions, you have not walked a mile into what, for example, Kenya Kwanza, William Ruto is walking through.
Is it not the very same lines that they used when they were campaigning?
Precisely.
And this is a second time. There are some of them that are second time and third time, you know, members of Parliament. They still went into that water, came back and told us this, perhaps a different thing, just so they would get the vote. Then they're back there, and then you want us to trust that.
Let me tell you this. You are comparing apples to oranges. No one, when you talk about two-time or whatever they were,
yes,
none of them served in the fifth watch of government. None of them lived in the future. None of them lived in the now when they were in the past. So that was futuristic. It was ambitious. It was the aspiration. But we are talking about the now. So when we get around that, we will get into a place where we are conflating and we miss the point. Right. The point being that all of those leaders, including us, they aspired and go to power. There's the hope. But you know, hope is not a strategy. There's the aspiration. That is a wish list. So we cannot use the wish casting of a campaign and then cast it into the reality of governing. Because governing is not poetry.
Would it be
it is
misplaced?
prose.
Would it be misplaced? And I think it's in the position of the others to actually counter this. Yes, Senior.
I think my brother Maliba, my young brother, he needs to be given a bit of lesson on how government operates. It is indeed not fantasy that someone just says, this is what we will do and this is what we want. We have laid down procedures and roles and responsibility defined for each arm of the government. Unfortunately, what he was elaborating very well, which he was trying to give a bit of structure, is the executive into the parliament. Unfortunately, if my students were listening, in the university when I teach the students, we give them a lot of information in relation to what has happened and what is documented in books. Mm-hmm. But in reality, when you come to the reality, people go by the book and implement what they see, not what they have found in the book, but you must be guided by the book. What do I mean? Parliament role is very clear. We dominate a lot on how we have reached that level of being a parliamentarian. The vehicle that we have used take much of parliamentarians' time and forget in delivering their role. And they actually absolutely forget their role. What do they forget? It is not that you have been elected through a certain vehicle. When you come to parliament, you need to deliver those services of that government that has promised. No, parliamentarians represent the people, and the interest of the people versus the interest of the leading party is the one which they are supposed to moderate it. Now, my brother says none of us have managed government. Unfortunately, he doesn't know us a bit of, he has not checked a bit of our background. Just go into the websites and see whom we are. We have run government offices, we have become CEOs, and we are CEOs of international institutions, which are even bigger than much of the governments, because they use global laws and a lot of other avenues. But what I think that we need to tell Kenyans is that if our parliamentarians have gone back to mashinani, they must have come back with issues that will going to address the interest of their electorate. And when the parliament is open, we expect, beside the government bills that are coming on board, we expect parliamentarians sponsoring bills which have not been tabled by the government ministries, and they see it is necessary for it to be propelled in order for them to benefit the electorates whom they have left. If they don't do that, we come across two things, that we will keep on having parliamentarians who are followers of the vehicles that have propelled them into parliament. Therefore, my brother, when he gives us a quote from Chinua Achebe, I'm sure he has not done Chinua Achebe in his literature. I did, because during his time, Chinua Achebe was absolute out of secondary level. We understand Chinua Achebe's information, basically where he was coming from. In that, when you don't understand what is going on, whoever is closer to that location, regardless of whether he understands or not, is more
credible.
Correct.
Appears more credible.
Appears more credible than the person. But now the world is not like that.
I have a question just on that point, please. Apologies for interruption. And it's for all of you. Yeah. Two questions, actually. And this is something Kenyans are asking. First of all, and since all of you are politicians, do politicians actually have a conscience? In the sense that, do you actually, I mean, the promises you make on the campaign trail, you talk to these people, you sweet talk them, you woo them, you promise them heaven on earth. Do you actually have a conscience when it comes to delivering that which you have promised? That's something a lot of Kenyans want to know. Or are you creatures of opportunity and expediency? And second question, I want us to interrogate this crocodile that we're talking about. We have heard that crocodiles are known for the so-called crocodile tears. So crocodiles are also capable of insincerity and deception. So should we believe all the crocodiles that come out of the water and tell us that the frog is sick and so on? But please, do you have a conscience, all of you? Let's start with Odede and then our dear lady.
Thank you.
And Castro.
We have seen politicians with conscience. We cannot say blanketly that all politicians don't have conscience. We have seen politicians with conscience. I think some of us were able to vote in 2002 when Moi Kibaki came into power, and he went around with his team and told Kenyans that these three things are the things me and my team are willing to do to you if you elect us in office. That was free primary education, which election was being held in December, and January children were reporting to school. And it happened. And that tells there are some politicians in this country who have had conscience, and they said what they meant, and they actually accomplished it. We saw them talking about zero tolerance to corruption. They might not have completed it completely to zero, but we saw serious war against corruption, and it was at that point when even Kenyans stood up to support Moi Kibaki and his team to fight corruption, literally. And so that tells there are politicians who have conscience. And we saw the third thing they were talking about is economic recovery. And we know the 24 years where it was and how Kenyans were suffering and how the economy was revived slowly by the time he was leaving power. We could all tell, I have not seen one person who says the economy did not grow or the recovery did not happen. It happened. Here we have the opposite case. Everything we were told and thinking that, yes, this is it. Almost going back. Coming to your second question.
By the way, just on that, do you realize that your example is actually more than 20 years old of leaders who have a conscience?
I was just reminding you that we have seen
modern leaders.
Modern leaders are there because we have MPs who have really done well. They have gone out to campaign in their constituencies, and for sure, most people in their constituencies are confirming that Honorable so and so are doing really well, even though they have not gotten everything they want, but they can see progress and they can see signs that with time they are going to get there. So yes, they are still there, including now. Then let me come to your second question, which was...
Before you go to the second question, I think we need to clear this. Before even Doc takes, I think the question is very clear. Do politicians have conscience? I think it's something worth telling Kenyans. Yes. What is it? We politicians don't have conscience. Their conscience is driven by their needs and demand from the government of the day, whereby if a politician logically reasons with objective in mind to propel the agenda of his people, he will be suppressed. Resources will be denied. Therefore, politicians have become, they are succumbing to demands and what do I call it? There are some words we don't like using it on public, but generally, it is like they have been suppressed.
Including you who was vying?
No, I mean, we are talking about... No, we are talking about politicians who are... You know, after you use a vehicle and you go... In a proverb in my homeland, we say, unfortunately, I'm sorry to use that, is that you bring a woman to your house through a lie, but when you want to now do the, what do you call the normal life, you deal with her with the way you are. You could tell her that, hey, I'm a billionaire, and you know, she brings the moment. I think politicians make a lot of lies. Politicians make a lot of lies.
I tend to disagree.
I was the one to speak, but
okay. Let me be Speaker Wetangula. Order, honorable, or should we say dishonorable members? Daktari, we're coming back to you in a second.
Right.
Could we just sample a very itchy point that appears to come from Castro, and then we come to you, Daktari. Thank you.
Exactly. You give me some time. So I tend to disagree with one of the Daktaris here, and I tend to agree on some points on what Mariba Arnold has said, that this country is not driven on ideologies. because as a politically we have no ideologies, and when the governments come in, they are not standing in with ideologies. We are not representing here. We are not like the United States, that we have the Republicans and Democrats, and they have either we are on the left or they are the far right. That is something different here. We are more warm and more accommodating on whatever side you are coming from, because as we are looking in, we have a parliament that is constituted on a government side and on opposition. But some of the MPs that were elected from the opposition side, as mayor, of course, they came to the government side. Why? Because their conscience, of course, agrees with whatever the people of this country realized with them. That this country needs every person and needs the effort and any iota of every member of parliament to regulate and to make laws, to deliberate on issues and policies that the government is giving them, because we are not, the parliament is not debating on opposition priorities. It is debating and it is giving more insight on priorities of the government, the deliverables of the government that they are making. This is a pro-people government, because it was elected and brought in by the people. This is not a junta rule. So it is a people's government. It is a democratic government that they are elected by the people. That is the executive, as much as we are saying that also the parliament needs to also represent the views of the people. And the issue here is both agencies, or both the arms of the government, the legislative arm, the parliament, that is the judiciary and the executive, they work together. And there is that thing of interdependent. They are independent arms, but they interdepend when it comes to roles and responsibilities given to them. Because the executive depends on the legislature to streamline on whatever path they should deliver policies, and they should deliver their manifesto onto the people. And that's why we are having government's bill brought on to the House, or on the House of Parliament, not for Parliament to just be the just pass it without consideration. Of course, there is that room for considering and making amendments, giving more insights onto whatever road that this policy should be driven by about. So it is for us as of course policy makers and policy debaters to actually give the insights to the people that yes, Parliament has conscience, and the parliamentarians has conscience. And if we got a non-conscious parliamentarian, then it also means that the people who elected this member of parliament, then they must have no conscience.
Dr. Real quick.
That's true.
Coming back.
I think Parliament is a representation of Wanjiku, or the citizens. I'll first answer your question. Yes, we have a few people, with the conscience, and we also have some who really don't care. And I don't blame them, because our politics is very expensive. I vied, so I know. And I'm talking from an experience point of view. And until the time that we shall be able to regulate how much an MP should spend on the ground, a governor, a women rep, meaning all the positions that are being vied for, that is the only time we shall be able to get legit and people with ideas. Because this is what happens. Like in my constituency, Kangima, there is somebody who actually promised us that they are going to bring Indian Ocean in Kangima. And people believed, because people want to be told a lie. Yeah. And this is what I want to tell Kenyans. It's a high time, next time, because 2027 is coming up pretty soon. And it's coming up, and we'll be there. I want to remind Kenyans, can you go for people with ideas, people who have a passion to serve you? Because some people, there's somebody who told me politics is a business. And for sure, it is a business, because some people sell land, sell cars, go for loans, go for shyrocking. And no wonder politicians, when they're through with the elections, when they lose, some of them, if you don't end up in Madare, you end up in the streets, and you are depressed. And that is the truth. And that is what Wajiko need to realize, that unless we deconstruct we get to know the cutoff of the money, and especially when you go to women in politics. How many women can afford 50 million to actually go for a constituency seat? I competed with men who were actually giving that kind of money. So when you go to the ground, you find that wananchi are telling you, we need to be given 1,000 or something. Maybe you are giving them 200, until the day Kenya will be able to go for politics or for an election that is not money-oriented. That is the time we shall be able to answer that question with a lot of confidence. But as it is right now, once they are elected, maybe they are elected on Monday, on Tuesday, they are something else. And they lose their head because they have to survive in parliament. And that is the truth. You know, my brother here, Arnold, you know, it is true. And let us not behave like we are still in politics or like we are still campaigning. Once the president is elected, it is our president, all of us, irrespective of which party you belonged to. And that is why I would say he is my friend, because I believe in, he's my friend. And that is why, we must make sure we are not political.
Victor, before Maliba, I want to go to the crocodile. I want to do this in less than 30 seconds.
Kindly, I don't want to lose my thought on what I wanted to say. But what I'm trying to say is that we must move from politics to development and action. Otherwise, if we move on like that in this country, we shall politic until 2027, and we elect another president, or whoever is there comes back, and there's no problem with that, and then we continue politicking. So when are we going to serve Wajiko? And that explains, by the way, that explains the reason as to why we have a lot of donor funding, we have a lot of government money, we have a lot of taxes, and no improvement.
Linda, in less than 30 seconds, I wanted to go to the crocodile thing very quickly. One time we believed that. Wait, one time we believed that. We believed that when a crocodile comes out and tells you that the hippo is sick, we believed that. Then crocodile told us that we will actually take Kenyan money, go to the Arab world, pay them there, and they will give us oil and bring here. We believed, because we have not been president before, we have never done government to government before. And how did it turn out? Crocodiles sometimes lie.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Let us read this comment. Yes, and this is a question. This is actually coming. This is a comment that is directed.
How about we do this? How about we do this?
We take a short break.
We should take a short break, because the time you will have. No. Actually, you would find. I believe you would find that the break is actually complimentary to all of you. You know why? Because it allows you more time to answer without the pressure.
You cannot.
You cannot. You're a brilliant man. I believe in your brilliance. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. We'll be right back after the break. And we start with Arnold. And no, you.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na Nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue. Mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
to finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
And I can tell you the temperature is rising for sure. George Maringa, you have an actual question from a viewer for Arnold Maliba. But as we promised, we like to be people of integrity, people of conscience, keeping promises. We said we'll give you some time to respond. Please.
I needed first of all to respond to your question.
Yes, please.
And I've realized that none of the panelists here so far fielding your question was even honest enough, or they didn't even care to define or ask what you meant by conscience. You asked if politicians have got conscience. The dictionary meaning of conscience is a person's moral compass on wrong and right. Now then we will ask the question, is a country, is government, is an administration a creature of morals?
Morality.
And then therefore, we then need to define what a conscience will be for a people that are running government means. And it's so simple. For us as a people, our conscience cannot be any of those mores. All of us have got different sets of belief sets and mores. So, but as a country, we have got a consensus of what a conscience should be for them that seek to run the public trust. And that is Article 10. So when you ask the question about do politicians have a conscience, it should be qualified. So your question was not qualified, and therefore it should not have been responded to. So these guys ended up, can I just finish?
Okay.
Why am I being bullied by these guys? And then I will get to the next level. So when people say that politicians have more, do they have a conscience or not? Who has got this conscientiometer that then sits around and says, okay, this is the conscience they have? First of all, I'll tell you that anyone that seeks the business of ruling over men has a conscience. It is so difficult a job that for me, who is a Christian, knows that one morning God got very angry and he outsourced that business to men. God himself used to rule us. Biblically, God himself was the leader of the men, the king of men and human beings. One morning he got tired with his business and outsourced it to other human beings. It's not been easy. So the business of stewardship is the business of conscience. We take every person out there, whoever steps in the vineyard of service is one particular person with so serious a conscience. So, but I would actually have expected that we base this, at least have a standard, and that should have been Article 10. Then the question on crocodiles. If they have got a...
Do you want to listen to this message first?
Yes, I will.
It's the same thing.
Can I answer his question before I listen to... This is a third question. He asked a question.
Your own information.
It's a crocodilian question.
Now that we're talking matters reptilians, we are at a point where we are talking about... you are talking about if there is what we will call crocodile tears. You know, all politicians are populists. All politicians, even
except
the word...
me.
Well, all politicians are populists because they would love to be loved so that they get elected. They would love to please people. And there is no politician who goes out there to hurt people deliberately. So when you talk about people crying for purposes of just crying, it's not. If there are people who bear the brand that you have never had, are people in politics. If the people who have run here, every single day they are getting a message about, they know all of horror stories that are down there. So that politicians don't cry publicly and they act strong means that they're even strong. That's the truth. Because the kind of stories they hear, the kind of cases they deal with every day, it's easy to look at people and say, okay, politicians don't feel these things, but they have learned, they have socialized themselves to be strong enough to stand up. Otherwise, and I say this for all politicians, whether they're in opposition or not, because I'm a practicing politician, and I know the challenge that comes with that. It's easy, and allow me to use the word, to trash politicians. It's easy to paint them black until you've walked in their feet, until you've walked in their shoes.
In their shoes.
Politicians actually are some of the people in this country who don't have better sleep.
Why do they vote again and again and again?
Because they have got a burden.
And Arnold, the same word, the scripture you were quoting earlier says, you shall know them by their fruits. And on that note, please, there's a question for you.
Okay.
From one Daniel Orogo, he says, and I'll quote verbatim. Yes. Linda, it is painstaking seeing Arnold Malinda, a recently brilliant independent mind, lose this critical objective and logical reasons. Parliament is overtaken and overridden by the executive. The similar attempts to manipulate the judiciary has failed flat-footed. The political parties are cannibalized under this regime. I'm watching and sadly, please read my message.
One of those things is this assumption that when you speak for government, you have lost your head. It is a fallacy. It is a substance of a people who then want to guilt trip and gaslight them that stand up for authority. Okay. Because if we do not have authority and people that can actually stand up for that particular administration, there will be anarchy. And then there's the flip side on the other side. That you do not want to tell me that everybody in government is dead from the neck upwards. And then somehow only those people outside are the ones whose heads are actually functional. It's not true. When we want to paint politicians as people who do not know what they are doing, that as a people who do not think, as a people without a heart and a soul, my friend, it's easy to steal a drum. The problem is where to beat it. So it's easy to talk about those things they're talking about until you are on a seat where you actually need to practice that. Daniel, for example, is a friend of mine. I think he will be on set here tomorrow, if I'm not so wrong, in the morning show here tomorrow. It's easy to come up with sound bites that can trend on social media, but it's so difficult to run a government. It's easy for people to actually... I'm actually saying because I'm part and parcel of a team that is running one. I have also worked with Uhuru Kenyatta when he was there. The good thing, he also elected me at some point where I ran the youth government of this particular country. He elected me. So I have been there. And I'm actually talking from this particular point. That I think when we talk about parliament, can I go back to qualify when I spoke about that the parliament we have today, it's not easy to understand them unless you appreciate the fact that this is a wartime parliament, and first and foremost, whatever they have to do is to ensure that the republic is alive.
I think
without the republic
should answer the
question. Can Doc just wait me? Can Doc wait?
Not have the answer.
Can Doc wait? Because first of all, they are waiting to answer. They are not even listening. Had they listened, they would have gotten the answer. Doc here knows too well. There are two ways. There are two ways of acquiring knowledge.
Right.
He teaches, so he will teach you that there are two ways of getting knowledge. First of all, by acquiring old knowledge. That's the first degree, part of second degree, and then after that, you then part two of how you acquire knowledge is by manufacturing or producing new knowledge. That is by way of research. So, a lot of these opinions these guys are giving here are part and parcel of old knowledge, acquired knowledge, which is not bad. But then the people in government today are living it. And part and parcel of it, that's why we talk about meal, is that they are producing knowledge. Knowledge based on reality. So it's true.
I think he has defended.
Kenyans are suffering the pain
he has defended it now.
Yes.
But
has anyone denied?
He has defended.
You cannot be
He has defended it now.
Including the president, who has said, look at this.
No. Arnold, you cannot be rest mislead Kenyans.
Okay. By the way, this is the people's court, not the people's demonstration court. Where people are heckling. It's not a heckler's court. It's the people's court. So
there is no heckling.
Can there be order?
Let's try and tone them down. Let's try and tone them down.
Can there be order?
Okay, order members.
But we cannot come here to mislead Kenyans.
Can there be order? So,
Order.
Linda, can I respond to your question? You asked a very important question. That doesn't it disturb people that there is suffering? No one lesser or rather higher than the president himself, he's actually said that he is disturbed. So no one is actually pouring water on the suffering of Kenyans. What those, including some of us here and people on that other side that you're seated, do not want to appreciate and factor into their contributions is this, is that there is context to where we are coming from. That there is somehow how we got here. This is not a miracle. We are not suffering because it's a happenstance. We are suffering because a country is a perpetual creature. There was yesterday, there was the other day, there's today, and then there will be tomorrow. Tomorrow is so much attached to what we do today. So as we fix today, then we will have a better tomorrow. But if we do not want to talk about yesterday, but we just want to talk about today, we are denialists and we are not having a honest conversation.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
Let's allow, yes.
Just allow me one thing before it goes off the screen, because we are lucky that our children are not awake. But we have a lot of senior Kenyans who are watching this. I think when we talk about consciousness, issues of consciousness, we talk about integrity, honesty, and Article 10. And as Mheshimiwa Dr. Chege has put it, so long as the onset of your campaign is anchored on bribery, you have already lost your conscience. And on that means then all parliamentarians, you must justify why
so
we
who
say
bribed
action.
what?
Now, secondly,
who bribed what?
So long as you have lost trust in you after even going through that process, and we have taken you to August House, and you fail to represent people whom you have lied to and said you're going to represent them only, and you run interests of a political party, you are not conscious on that aspect.
So this is reactionary. This is reactionary, and it will actually have
Are we faulting the constitution, the structures of the nation, the systems of the nation? Because if there is a country that perhaps people would argue, well, the president is not as straight, is as rogue and whatever, but then the structures and the systems of this country are going to put this president in order. Why is it then that we'll have members of parliament that will not align to what it is that the constitution dictates them, such that Arnold here would tell us that, well, those members of parliament that are back did not serve in this fifth government? Is that to tell us that, well, every government has its own way of handling things as opposed to what the laws of the land dictate?
That is according to my friend Maliba. He believes that. That's why he was gambling around how government is managed. He does not understand. He thinks that the president is the government. No, the president is the head of the executive, but the government is the people. According to our constitution, the government is the people, and we are those who are providing services or who are working are the workers of the government. That's why they are called the three arms of the government who represent them.
Actually,
so
I think I now support him when he says that it's good our children are sleeping.
Okay.
When you get a whole professor mixing up principles and concepts this way.
Hang on a second. Can
we take this home?
Hang on a second.
Let me finish.
We'll get back in a second. Just on that point.
Yes.
We're talking about politicians here. We're talking about politics here. At what point and who will actually bring back the voice of the people? Where is the voice of the people in all this? They say democracy is the government of the people and for the people. And we have also agreed here, your own concessions, that politicians are actually people primarily led by self-interest and then public interest second and so on. Now, at what point does the voice of the people come? And who will actually represent the voice of the people and their needs in Parliament, for example?
According to history teaches us very well. The only hope we had before judiciary was infiltrated was judiciary. The only hope where you find executive and Parliament are not doing the right thing, and then Kenyans had only one window of representing their exactly. And now that one is even in question based on what has happened the last few months. However, the provision for the Constitution in terms of getting back your power is laid out very well in 2010 Constitution. And if we try to implement that, then we are able to get back as the people of Kenya. But the challenge in between there, is that parliamentarians who will have been the spearhead of people's issues have also lost directions. So on that context, then Kenyans have been left alone.
So the voice of the people remains.
Exactly, the voice of the people remain voiceless.
But I think whatever Prof is trying to insinuate here is that the parliament here today has no voice. Of course, the voice of the people in Parliament should be represented by the elected leaders, the elected MPs. They have been delegated. That power is delegated to them by the people. And people have presumed that the Parliament have been taken over by the executive, that is assumption. It has been assumed that
it is actually a spin by the opposition.
Why exactly? Why is that assumption now rooting into the minds of the likes of Daktari here and others outside there? It is because now we are not, of course, we are not experiencing that hate that that it was in Parliament. We are not seeing that debate of opposition and the government, the opposition defending being pro-people, or the government now defending its position in Parliament. Because even the opposition, where they are coming from also, they have agreed that whatever the government is trying to do and whatever the government is doing, it is a pro-people agenda, it is a pro-government agenda, and it is what the people themselves need. It's only that the only disagreement here, and this disagreement, we only hear them in medias and in public rallies, in political rallies, and on top of the cars. It is, this is a political disagreement, not policy, because all of them, they are agreeing on the policies that the government is running. Not even the Parliament, from both sides, they are agreeing on the policies that the government has introduced, that the government has tabled on the floor of the House. It's only that the way and the process that these priorities of the government is being manufactured, and how, at the end of the day, how we are getting to get the results. So the disquiet here and will be settled when the interests rhyme. When interest rhyme, the interest of the position, that of the government rhyme, then this all noise shall go
Victor,
off.
let me pitch this. I don't think we are honest with ourselves when we are saying this parliament has not been muzzled and is not in the pocket of the executive. We can actually give clear examples that you and I both know. When the president and the executive were bringing the finance bill, it was the president who spoke before Kenyans, before all the cameras, and say, I want to see that parliamentarian who will say no to this bill. I want to see. It was a serious warning, and all Kenyans watched. And here you are sitting, I mean, giving us rumor-mongering that there is nothing like that. The president warned and said he wants to see which parliamentarian is that, from which constituency. Wait, listen. Can you first listen? We listened when you were talking.
So the president does not have a voice.
Please, Speaker, can you protect me from government?
Order, please.
That is one. Number two, when Kenyans realized that we have delegated our powers to parliamentarians to speak on our behalf, to represent us, but they have already been overtaken by the executive. So the Constitution allows us to go out and share our thoughts. And so they went before the committee, the budget committee, and we were told, in cameras.
How many Kenyans?
Many Kenyans.
Out of 55 million,
wait.
Some 20 people show up in parliament, and that is at the threshold.
Can you wait? Can we wait? I finish what I am saying. Arnold, you're not going to kill this one. Even if you go 30 minutes, I will come back to it.
I said order.
Wait,
order, members.
I was
Order.
Finishing.
Order.
Victor, I was finishing.
Order.
The parliamentarians, the budget committee.
Hold on.
I'm finishing.
Hold on, guys. Hold on. We haven't got long. So I urge all of us to keep our comments punchy and short, and let's allow each other to speak. And if you have a nice riposte or a nice rejoinder, wait for your time.
I'm just finishing what I was saying. We saw the number of Kenyans who responded to the call by the budget committee. And we were told, out of all those who responded, more than 70% were actually against. Stop this how many thing you want to make the point.
No, the point is...
more than 70%. And that was...
Let's allow it.
And that was a representation.
Let us hear the point first.
That was a representation of how Kenyans think. Meaning, even if there were 10 and 7 said no, it means that is a sample of the population out there, including people who are professional, came and said no.
Okay, so what's your point?
People could not listen. And you want to tell me that there is no problem with this government, there is no problem with this parliament. This parliament has been captured.
We're talking about the voice of the people.
So at this point, Dr. Shega has really not let her rejoin.
I think I should be protected from this gentleman now. I am thinking we are almost losing what is the question. What do Kenyans expect from our parliamentarians? It is so critical that our MPs realize that we are expecting them, when they go there, the entire time, they must be able to bring the cost of living down.
Okay.
How? It is their business. They must be able to address the NADICO issue. That one they must be able to address because it had recommendations that has not been addressed. The other thing...
Recommendation was, cost of living was a recommendation.
Yes, cost of living was...
That was quashed.
It was quashed, and you know, we are expecting them to actually address that. We are expecting them to actually look at those recommendations, the offices that were being created. We are also expecting them to actually registrate. We are expecting them to look at the bills. We are expecting them to look at the shift. You know, the NHIF, the shift, because it should be actually be looked at. We are expecting them to look at the social protection bill. We are expecting them to look at the health bill. We are expecting them to, there are so many bills that are before them, and that is why I want to remind our MPs, your work is not to give sanitary towels, your work is not to give one packet of unga, your work is to registrate, to oversight, and to represent us. The issues that are actually humiliating and actually impoverishing Kenyans. One, we were told the gas will go down. I don't know how, when it will go down, but they should be able to actually tell the executive, this is what we found out. I mean, it's like an examination. It's like research. You've gone to the field. You have come back. These are the findings. They should be able to tell us. They should be able to tell the executive, because if they don't do that, come 2027, I am telling you, people will be so annoyed. Though Kenyans, I know, and they need to listen to this. When you go to an election, it is the only time Kenyans leave their brains at home, and then they collect them when they are voting.
Can I talk about the voice of the people?
Which is crucial to this, yes.
You know, it is so sad that we can have a panel like this railing down on Kenyans and telling Kenyans that they are headless and that they don't vote with their head. It is sad that we somehow think that 55 million out there, when they made their decisions, they had left their heads home. You don't insult a nation and get away with it. Having said that, I think it's important to point out this way. And when you talk about the voice of the people, what does the Constitution talk about that? At the end of the day, we must always go back and bounce back to the Constitution, or the background that the back end of every conversation we must actually be anchored by the Constitution. So, number one, the voice of the people. The Constitution 2010 comes up with a participatory government. And that is why when I hear a governance and leadership expert who is a PhD knowledge talk about the government being the people and the yada and everything else, I'm like, and why is he mixing up aspects? But that is again a debate for another time. So, we have got a participatory government.
Okay.
The voice of the people is in every arm of government, either directly or indirectly. The only arm of government that does not have a direct mandate from the people is the judiciary. Otherwise, the executive has got the direct mandate of the people. And that is the voice of the people. About 16 months ago, they went to an election, and 16 million Kenyans overwhelmingly voted for a government. They rejected some of us on this particular table, including myself. Now all of a sudden we are angry because they rejected us. We want to call them names by saying that they left their brain at home. That was the voice of the people. That was the voice of the people speaking out. And that mandate constitutionally lasts for 5 years, and then we will go back again. So that particular voice is still there. Two, once the people have voted in their leaders, they don't stop at that. There is the level of public participation. You've realized that every time there has been, sometimes we are going to court, and where the executive has not done something well, a lot of times the easiest ground upon which it's won is public participation, which means that the voice of the people has not really been lost. It's still out there. Kenyans have got several avenues of expressing themselves, including what Mesha calls about people going out there in the streets and everything else. So when we talk about the voice of the people, we still have got parliament that is sitting. Those people were elected by people. They talk to people more than us, by the way. Members of parliament are always on the ground. Some of the people who are sounding lyrical here sneak into their rural homes and come back to Nairobi very fast. They can't sit there because they've run away from the ground. You didn't vote for me. But members of parliament have people talking to them every day. If there are people who have got a grasp of how the people feel, They're these members of parliament.
As you wind up, because we need to enter the home stretch.
So I just needed to say this.
Yes.
That when you talk about the voice of the people, let us not get around and then say, a lot of what I hear is reactionary. Quite reactionary. Assuming that all the people out there have forgotten their role and everything else. Kenyans are so participative. You can actually see what they say online. You can see what they write. You can see what they tell their leaders. And their leaders are also speaking. So when you show up here and you tell that the voice of the people is already dead because a few leaders did what and they crossed over and that level of kindergarten arguments should not be finding itself on primetime shows like this. We must accept. You are the ones who have been insulting the people by saying that people left their brain home when they went to vote. Yeah. So when we call them out, they get
lives in heaven.
So
the people of Kenya are speaking and they're speaking so loudly. Why are the rest of you not listening to what the people are saying? Those are the people speaking.
Okay.
Order, sir.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry, sir. Listen, we are in the home stretch. I would like to ask all of you to restrict your submissions to your parting shots. Yes. I'm afraid we are completely out of time. Please, parting shots to Kenyans. Have you given your parting shot?
No, I will be last.
You cannot call the shots.
No, this is not executive. This is not government.
There's something called viewer fatigue. I've just spoken now.
Dr. let's have your parting shots, Dr. Harun.
Camera.
I think mine will be very simple. I will not want to be emotional like my friend Maliba. And you know, when you are justifying lies,
to the camera, please.
It creates a lot of emotions. Emotions build up, and sometimes you get tensed, and eventually he may end up my patient because he will develop depression and he'll come to me. No problem. I have no problem with that. But mine is that one of the most deadly cause of destruction of divine destiny is when a leader is failing, but he or she does not know it. And that is where we have the problem for our politicians and for the rest of the leaders in the government.
Okay.
Thank you.
Castro.
Yes, as I end, I would like to respond to my friend here that he said that the president gave a warning or shouted hi to the parliament when they were doing the finance bill. Yeah. But I would like to also try to give him some insight on how this
We have no time for...
Yeah, sure. That this bills and government policies, they are lobbied, like the way opposition and his party leader did. He also lobbied from both sides, and also lobbying comes from both sides, from the opposition and government. Yeah. This lobbying also we lobby, like Mariba and the others, we lobby this guy. That's why we do the public participation. It is part of lobbying. And you should engage on that one. Like now, I'm in the process of lobbying for the tea farmers because a lot of things is happening, right from the management of the factories in the machinery there. So we need to actually come up and lobby for government bills. If the president represents the executive to lobby for his agendas, his priorities in parliament, then so should they also come on board and then lobby for the people. Right. So Mariba, my people in Odaya, they are not agree with me and I'm not agree with them. It's only that my votes were not enough to take me to parliament. Okay. But I know they will do this. So happy Valentine. So happy Valentine to my people in Odaya.
Oh,
so
beautiful.
I'm adding this one. So I would like to restrict this debate. Like we are very hopeful in parliament in this time round, this session as they come back. So, and we are expecting more and more policies that align to pro-people thing that will come to pass. And people, we have been patient, we are very patient to see this government deliver.
You want to allow Maliba so that the rest can be the last one. Maliba, why you don't want? You are fatigued, gun. You 1, 2, 3 already.
First of all, I would like to congratulate once again the parliamentarians who are now back. And I want to remind them of something that we have not touched on, but it was on the highlights about the IBC boundaries and all that. Remember, if you do not go to Supreme Court, ask for an extension because it is ending up in 5th of March. I think you're going to be an illegal parliament and Senate, so you'd rather be up on that. Then the other thing, I want to encourage our people from Murang'a County. You know, we are having a challenge quite because we have had anthrax challenge, and I want to tell the Kenyans and our people, please do not move around and animals and all that. Listen to what the county government regulations are ongoing. And then lastly, as I wind up, I want to still remind them that we need to put food on the table and we need to have an extra income, and therefore we are continuing to do carbon sequestration and carbon credit and climate change. That is what we've been advocating, so that our people might have something in their pocket. And lastly, our alcoholism in Murang'a and Central Kenya basically is a bit up, and we should be able to work with the young people to give them an alternative economic activity so that they don't go into drinking and all that, and we are losing many of them.
We'll
and
create a conversation in relation to that.
Yeah,
that
so I'm calling, I'm calling upon our people in Murang'a on carbon credit mapping and all that. We are already doing that. You can look for me on my Twitter handles and Facebook, Julia Chege, and we'll be able to put food on the table.
Beautiful, Daktari. Arnold, it's your turn.
I thought I would be the last person.
Please do not respond to them.
First of all, dear Kenyans.
Here's your camera.
Dear Kenyans, there is something called...
the one straight over there. Sorry.
It's being rigged even now. Now you see. So, dear Kenyans, there's something called...
Let's have the mic up.
There's something called toxic feedback loop. And that will easily give you the depression, the trauma that you see online, quite a toxic society. There is quite a few groups that have not moved on from 2022 August 9th, are people who are hell-bent on having a cyclic toxic feedback loop, and there is nothing good they are selling. Everything you read from what they write, even from sarcasm, people coming up with all manner of things to just show you how bad your own country is. If you actually listen to those people, you are going to get sick. Are you able to look at data? Look at what government is doing. Like, for example, today, at the time of closing markets, the dollar was at 153. At some point during the day, it was at 151. That is working around. And I will go into that and talk about it so much. So, even as we have got a national conversation and get into social media and look at that, let us not be a people who are then consumers from these few merchants, spin doctors, and their consultants on this particular table, who actually are pushing this particular narrative of people hating their own society and hating their own country. So we don't need to move on that particular end. But I love to end on this particular bit. This weekend I was in Matungu. I was born in Nairobi, but my ancestors were born in Matungu. Matungu is in Mumias. Mumias is in Kakamega County. Kakamega is in Kenya. And I listened to what the people were saying. There is the feeling, of course, the hardship part of it. People are so honest. They speak about their problems and they are asking about solutions. People are not asking to buy despair and these kind of reactionary stories that we are being given out here, that it's a lost cause and everything else. As a country, we've moved out so well. We are doing quite, if it was a sick person, I would talk about we are now into the general ward, and by mid of this particular year, we will be going home.
We'll take your word
Fair
for
enough.
it.
And on that very hopeful
take your
note...
word for it. Close it.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
If he is closing, I will close.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Proceed.
Fellow Kenyans, you know where the truth is. It is not us on the table that know the truth better than you do, because in this week alone, even the Attorney General of this government, the chief legal advisor of this government, has come out twice on your screens and told you that some of these things have gone without him being consulted as the legal advisor of government. So it is not Maliba or me who can tell you the truth. You know the truth.
All right.
Well said. Well said. No, we have to close. We have to close. Everybody else has given
Everyone
their
has given.
shot. Everyone else has given their parting shot. We have to close in the best interest of time.
In the interest of time.
To talk to them.
Order. One more thing.
Okay.
Let's not lie to the dollars. The rate as the close of business today is 159.5.
All right. Okay.
I think we
Lady, order.
That is where we wind up. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We thank you for joining us so much.
Sante.
Absolutely. My name is George Maringa. Thank you so much for watching. Your feedback has been intense, but that's all we had time for right here on the People's Court. I'll see you next time. Stay safe and be kind to one another.
Maliba Arnold, Strategic Communications Advisor of UDA. And then we had Dr. Julia Chege, HSC Governance and Political Analyst. We also had Mesha Kodede, Political Commentator, and equally the boss of VIO. And we also had Dr. Harun Isaac Hassan, Leadership and Governance Expert. And lastly, we had Gakuna Njima Castro, who's a political analyst. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. My name is Linda Alela.
And my name is Victor Muyakane, HSC, I should say. Yeah. Thank you very much for choosing us to inform you. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true.
Better act like you know. Good evening. May God bless you. And see you next time.
Once he uses that.
But he was awarded in the previous region.
Yeah, it's true.
Thank you for joining.
Yeah, for once.